How on earth am I going to sell this car for a profit? Welcome back to episode 4 of TCR Trading Up, and today we're on with fixing the issues on the Mazda MX5, one of which is a flat battery. If you're new here, I'm Tom Shorrock, and this is my journey of flipping cars from £200 to 15 grand. And I would be lying to you if I said it hasn't come without its challenges, which is exactly what I'm faced with right now. The battery charger is currently showing part charge. Yesterday it was showing full charged when the battery was flat. So if I just pop open the boot, 1 second, lights have lit up. Now, one way I'm going to be able to tell if this has worked or not is when I turn this off, the registration plate lights shouldn't go off if the battery's charged. Oh, we may be in luck. So, right, just need to push this out. Hopefully, this should start, fingers crossed. I hope so anyway. Ready? We have lights. Oh! I genuinely can't believe this. It's been on charge for nearly 2 days and the battery's new. So I need to get my voltage meter on the battery to make sure it's giving out the right amount of volts. And we might have to boost it. And that's exactly what we did. We hooked up the battery booster and hoped for the best. It's battery in it. I think the best thing to do with this is to swap that battery. Even though it's new, everything is indicating it's absolutely knackered. But it is great to hear that rasp again. Listen to this. With the battery confirmed to be kaput, I swapped it out with a new one. Now, one issue we still need to sort is the lumpy idle. I've really been pulling my hair out trying to solve this, and I have been having a play off camera with a few friends of mine. At first, we thought it was something very, very simple, such as loose hoses, because you could literally pull them off with your hand. It didn't turn out to be that. Then we thought it was a spark plug, so we put some new ones in. It wasn't that. And then we got some brake cleaner and sprayed it around all the intakes to see if the idle would pick up. Still the same problem. The car was cutting out. So, thankfully, Top Don reached out to me and gave me this RT-Diag 800 Bluetooth diagnostics machine, and it is a fantastic bit of kit, and I want to thank them personally because without this I'd still be scratching my hair. What we essentially did was connect the car up with the Bluetooth OBD port. We started the engine, ran the diagnostics, and straight away it picked up on a mass airflow sensor problem. So to prove it, we disconnected the MAF sensor, the idle problem disappeared. However, the car was running very rich. It absolutely ponged of fumes, but it did prove the issue was coming from the MAF sensor. Thankfully, a friend of ours also has a Mazda MX5, so we took the MAF flow sensor off his car, shoved it onto this one, and hey presto, it got rid of the issue. So that is exactly why I've picked up a brand new MAF sensor off eBay, and I'm going to stick it on the car and solve it once and for all. I must add though, if you do want to save some money on a MAF sensor, do not buy them from main car part manufacturers, and that is because the Mazda MX5 shares the same MAF sensor as a Suzuki Jimny and a Suzuki Vitara, and this was just £17 off eBay. So that is going to go there in its place, and hopefully it's the idle issue solved. Swapping the MAF sensor on an MX5 is a really simple job. If you know how to use a screwdriver and a socket set, it really is worth having a go and gambling the 17 quid. It takes a matter of minutes to swap it out, and the results can be amazing. Now evidently that air filter isn't off this car, and you can see there's just nothing holding it in. I am going to change that. I'm probably going to end up buying a proper induction kit for it rather than relying on this piece of rubbish. Just going to plug the MAF sensor back in now. That's on. And I think it's time for the moment of truth. Let's give it a fire. So far, so good. Let's give it a minute and see what happens. Well, I'm pleased to say I think that has definitely solved the problem, albeit the air filter is a bit of a mess and probably wants a bit of attention with a proper one fitting, which is something I'll do. However, that doesn't stop there because there are other issues. And by other issues, I'm referring to the wheels and tyres. With all that negative camber, I needed to check the condition of the rubber because the last thing I needed was to fail an MOT on something so simple. Whilst doing this, I thought it was best to get the MX5 on all fours, which would allow me to inspect the underneath for general rust, corrosion and any other issues caused by the car being on coilovers. Oh, oh my! How this tyre has not gone bang. Look at that! The sickening thing is there's actually fantastic tread on them tyres all the way from there, and then when you get to here there's absolutely nothing. I think I'll go and get these changed. So with the tyres absolutely shredded and only good for the skip or gathering dust, I headed out to try and grab myself a bargain, and I must admit I was feeling rather confident. £400 for 4 tyres. I just can't justify it. If I want to make a profit on this MX5, £400 on a bit of rubber just to get it through an MOT and sell it on, it's not an option. The other thing is I could look at part ones, but with part ones, I'm going to struggle to get the size of tyre that I need for the modified wheels. So the best thing that I can do is plan B. But plan B would have to wait, because back at the barn, there were other problems. The roof had decided it wanted to urinate itself. That's a job that's sadly going to have to wait. I want to focus on getting this car back on the road, which brings me on to say we need to sort out the handbrake issue. I started off by removing the cowling from around the handbrake. After this, I whipped out the lube and sprayed it on some nuts. After the penetration had completed, I unbolted the locking nuts on the handbrake cable to allow me to adjust it and apply more tension. This ended up being a two-man job, so I dragged in Matt to sit in the car and adjust the cable at the lever end, whilst I undid the nuts on the back of the calipers and tensioned up the cable at the wheels, whilst making sure the brakes were not binding. Now to get that adjusted, I've had to wind it all the way to the end, and that's because the pads are very low. So for what it's worth, I'm probably going to revisit this and swap the pads, but at the minute I'm just focused on getting it through an MOT. But it does need them, and for the sake of 10, 12 quid, whatever they are, it's definitely worth doing. The discs don't need doing, there's absolutely no lip on them at the back and none on the front. But the best thing is, we now have a handbrake, which means we're on to tackling the ABS issue. However, there was a slight dilemma. ABS sensors were out of stock everywhere, so I ended up ordering one online. And with the list of jobs growing, I headed back to the shed to take advantage of the wheels. Let's take a bit of a closer look at this wheel. Obviously you can see right on the edge there's some horrible scoring, and it does near enough transfer all the way around the edge of the wheel, which is quite bad news because we're going to have to sand this down, and some of the gouges are actually quite thick. But don't worry, this can all be sorted with a light sand. Whilst I was still awaiting a cheap solution to tyres, I thought I'd have a go at refurbing the wheels since they were a bit curved and tatty. I started off by sanding the wheels with a Dremel and paper to get rid of all the jagged edges. After this, I applied some filler, let it cure, and then sanded it down again. Then I used some etch primer to give the new paint something to adhere to, and once the primer had dried, I gave the wheels 2 coats of lovely gold paint. Now, I needed to make them shine, so that's where the lacquer came into play. And if you want to see a full in-depth video of me refurbishing these wheels, click the pop-out banner in the top right. And we finally have a solution to the replacement tyres. I searched on eBay and I managed to get 4 brand new Nankang NS2 tyres for, drumroll, £149, which is an absolute bargain, I must admit. However, I know you probably sat there thinking, yeah, well, they must be a couple of years old. They're actually not. These were produced in March 2023, and I do have to say, they look fantastic. Now the wheels have been refurbed and we've got some chunky, fresh rubber on them. It was time to finally remove the temporary OEM wheels that I borrowed from a friend. If I'm being honest, I can't wait to see how these wheels will look on the car, especially now they're finished in a lighter tone of gold and they have those chunky brand new tyres. I tell you what, it is good to see that fat stance back. We have got a bit of a catching issue here, but that's all going to be sorted by jacking up the suspension once we get this planted back on the ground and we sort a few other issues underneath. But it does look fantastic and I can't wait to just see this slam to the floor driving down the road again. Whilst we're on the subject of wheels, I need to remove the Vertex steering wheel, mainly because it has no airbag and no horn. But if I'm being perfectly honest, it's pretty vulgar. Now the steering wheel has been swapped and the horn works and all the airbags connected up, we are one step closer to getting this car through an MOT. And I must add, the main reason this car was sold to me is because the person that had it previously couldn't get the car through the MOT because of the steering wheel. So I did ask, why didn't you just remove it? And he said he couldn't. And you may have noticed when we was removing it, I used this gear puller. It was on so tight to the splines, I couldn't get it off. For the sake of 10 quid to get that off, we've now got the old steering wheel back on and we're going to be getting this car soon MOT'd. One thing we do need to run through is how much we have spent on this car so far. So for that, I think it's back to the TCR office. Now we're back in the TCR office, I need to run through exactly how much we have spent on the Mazda MX5. But before I do, I need to ask for your help. I'm currently running a charity raffle for Brain Tumour Research where one of you lucky people gets the chance to win a toolbox which is absolutely loaded with tools. It's a fantastic starter kit if you want to get involved in working on cars. A large percentage of the profit is being donated to the charity, so I need your help to get this sold out because there's roughly around 3 days left. If you want to enter, the link is in the description and anything that you do click or donate will be much, much appreciated. Anyway, on to the total spend. There's a couple of receipts here that relate to paint, but they're not all associated with the Mazda MX-5. Some relate to the Classic Mini that I'm restoring, and if you want to see more about that, click up here. So on paint, we spent £35.46. You'll also remember we changed the battery on the car and I did buy that from Euro Car Parts and that came in at £44.99. The MAF sensor was £17.95 at the time I purchased it. This is where it gets quite expensive now, so we bought some tyres. The tyres came in at £149. Now, I wish I could have had these fitted for free, but sadly people want paying and that's just the way the world works, and I did get a cheap deal with this. I had all 4 tyres fitted, balanced and with new valves for £20, which brings the total spend of this episode in at, another drum roll, £272.40. You can see how the costs are slowly creeping up in this and it can get quite alarming. If we factor in the purchase price of the car, which was £1,100, and add the spend of this episode to it, the total spend so far is £1,367.40. Now, we have to sell this car on for a profit, and I know a lot of you are sat there thinking, yeah, but you've spent a lot of time doing this, Tom. How much are you valuing that at? Labour, I'm valuing at 0. And that is because I am investing in myself and my dream. If I was running this as a business, obviously a labour cost would have to be associated with the car. But because I'm simply doing this for a bit of fun and trying to work my way up to a BMW E46 M3, labour, I'm just swallowing that because I enjoy doing the work. I also have to factor in, this is the bad bit, MOTs. I have to factor in that the car's going to need tracking, taxing, and then there's the big one, getting the windscreen repaired before the MOT. Now, I do have a trick up my sleeve for that. but I'm not sure how it's going to go. So this could quite easily spiral out of control, which makes me think, how on earth am I going to make a profit on this MX5? Join me next time to see if the MX5 can pass an MOT, and hopefully there are no more hidden costs.